B12 deficiency, B12 is needed for your vascular system. When you have a B12 deficiency, this protein called homocysteine elevates in your blood, and it damages the internal, your vessels, where you can put more plaques, so you are at more risk for blood clots, which leads to strokes, heart attacks, blood clots in your legs, etc. So not only does it damage the neurologic system and could cause permanent dementia, etc., but it also puts people at risk for cardiovascular disease. So that's another reason why it's so important.
And Sally, you found it very important to talk about this and put it in a book because you have your own personal story with this.
Yes, I actually have one form of B12 deficiency from an autoimmune disease, and mine's called autoimmune pernicious anemia. And I was in my early 20s where I was lucky where on my blood test I had enlarged red blood cells called macrocytosis. The red blood cells became larger. Now that's one of the reasons physicians are misdiagnosing people or not even thinking to check them, is because they're taught in medical school, I was taught in nursing school, B12 deficiency, you have to be macrocytic, these big red blood cells, and you have to be anemic. That is untrue. There's been papers that have been written in the late 1800s, in the 1900s, and a big study came out in 1988 in the New England Journal of Medicine stating and reiterating from the past research that a third of the people who have a true B12 deficiency affecting their neurologic system do not have anemia or macrocytosis. So the very two signs that physicians are looking for to test you further, you don't have to have. And the neurologic damage is starting or could, get you before you're going to see those signs and symptoms, and there's reasons for that. But in my case, I was lucky. I only had the big, large blood cells, and I worked in an emergency room, and I wasn't a nurse yet. I was in nursing school, and I asked one of the doctors to check me, and he kind of, what do you want to be checked for? But he did, because I was friends with him. Sure enough, I had a big B12 deficiency. And my grandfather had pernicious anemia. In the 1960s, they thought he had cancer, and they thought he was going to die, but actually it turned out he had a B12 deficiency. He had pernicious anemia. So in my case, the reason why I'm such an advocate for other people, I don't have any neurologic damage or chronic pain in my legs and neuropathy like diabetics get. And let me stop there for a second. Anybody with diabetes who has neuropathy always should make sure that part of their neuropathy is not caused from B12 deficiency. The problem, what I see, is once you have a label slapped on you, you have neuropathy, they get tunnel vision, and they think that neuropathy is just caused by diabetes. How do you know that patient also doesn't have a B12 deficiency? Therefore, screening is proactive, it's preventative, it's going to help you. And some of these people who are diabetics on metformin. Metformin is one of the diabetic drugs, also called glucophage, that for some reason that drug, over a period of time that you take, it does something in the ileum where it makes it difficult to absorb B12. So those people are at higher risk. And not just because of the metformin, but because diabetes over long-term can cause neuropathy and B12 deficiency causes neuropathy, you need to screen people. Just like we screen for diabetes, we screen for thyroid disorders, physicians must screen for B12 deficiency. And the reason it's so important, and I'm so passionate about this, is because B12 deficiency has a treatment. Many disorders do not have a treatment. And people in the early 20th century used to die from B12 deficiency. That's what they got the name pernicious, which means deadly, anemia. And I think the name really needs to kind of change because physicians equate pernicious anemia for everything with B12 deficiency, but there are several reasons you can have a B12 deficiency, and pernicious anemia is really only designated for the autoimmune phenomenon. And that's okay that they're misusing it, but the title, pernicious anemia, they're looking for anemia, and if you're not anemic, the physician's not looking for it, and that's where we start the ball of the confusion and the miseducation.
And Sally, really there's so much information there, but I highly recommend that people pick up the book and they can read for themselves and go to the doctor and be tested for B12. Sally, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. The book is called Could It Be B12, An Epidemic of Misdiagnosis? It's now available in stores and online at Amazon.